I think that we've gotten a thumbs up. They're going to put us up on the screen here. Oh, there we are. Looking just as fabulous and sexy as ever, huh? Another fabulous day of Let's Talk About It. Brother Joel,
Yes.
how you been, man?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Good.
Anything new?
No, I haven't hit the Powerball.
Yeah, you haven't hit. Hey, just don't forget your brother, okay? Because I guess you got to play in order to win, and I darn sure ain't played. So
That is probably why I haven't won.
well, we definitely want to give a shout out and a great thanks to the big guy leaving out the room from CCX Create. We appreciate you guys allowing us to be here each and every Wednesday to be able to provide you with news that you can use. Again, this is a platform for you to kind of come on down, be part of the show, for you to be able to share what it is that you're contributing to the community, right? To empower, enhance, and educate the people. Because again, the people is the one who makes the changes. Again, we can no longer just sit back and allow our government, if you will, or our leaders to just make choices and decisions for us without us, having some type of input and impact, on our outcome, because we are the ones that know what our communities need, deserve, desire, et cetera, et cetera. We always start and end with that famous backpack, but I'll turn it over to Joe in just a second. But we just can't seem to let this cooler weather, it seems like, go, man.
It's hanging on. This is Minnesota where it always gets a little colder, so, just a little bit longer.
Yeah, last night I was at a little part-time job. Tonight I also kind of have to go in. But, man, it got down to like 35 degrees or so, and when an individual has to be outside for a few minutes, the wind typically, or the weather, I should say, typically says hello, and it's not a good hello.
No.
But, we are, kind of turning that corner. It's May, in the next couple of days. And hopefully we will kind of start to warm up and stay warm and all that other good stuff. The Timberwolves, bro. The Timberwolves.
Yeah, what's happening?
Man, they're 3-2 over the Denver Nuggets. They have Game 6 tomorrow right here back at home. We're hoping that they can go ahead and put this to bed, because if they go back to Denver, in Game 7, that's going to be a tall order. It's going to be a tall order. That means that Denver would have won the last two and looking to win 3 in a row. And we just don't want to see that happen to those Timberwolves and getting to go home early. That would not be a good look.
No, it would not.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of like the same thing as the year before and the year before and the year before. I'm just saying.
Hey, the draft, bro. Did you get a chance to see any of the draft?
No, I missed out on that. I know we got some good picks up from right here.
When you say we, are you talking about Minnesota or Pittsburgh?
Oh, there's only one we.
Well,
that'll be Pittsburgh. You know that.
Hey, I think this man that missed his true calling, and that was a comedian. We need to get him up out of law enforcement and put him on a stand-up or something. So tell me about it, man. So you thought that they had some good picks?
Yeah, I think we got some good picks at the corner position. I think we had some good picks at the tackle position, some things that we needed to shore up. And I think we're looking good going into this new season, so we're excited about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I saw, some of the Minnesota draft, and I think there were some interesting drafts, selections. One of the individuals, I can't remember exactly who it was, but I guess he had some previous injuries. And I think the injuries was kind of like to the same area of the body, so I'm hoping that whatever that injury was that he has sustained previously, that he's still able to kind of perform and be healthy, and things of that nature. I'm going to hold off, on weighing whether our selections were good selections or not. I'm just not 100% knowledgeable if they were good picks or not. It just seemed like we were kind of all over the map a little bit, and maybe we do need some help in those areas. But, I'm going to kind of wait to see, kind of see how some of the practices go, here in the near future, and then maybe kind of come back and kind of weigh in on some of our draft picks. But and there's only one we, are just excited, for this upcoming year, to see exactly how that's all going to kind of play out for us.
Yeah, I think, the Vikings are looking forward to, selling some really good food. They got some new food in the stadium, and we'll be excited to hear about that. But we're going to leave the playing to the Steelers and suggest that if you want to see a championship caliber team, come on out and watch the Steelers play. On the more positive note, though, Tomlin will be joining the NBC team, which is pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he'll be joining that team coming up here pretty quick. So, you guys will get a chance to see greatness move forwards and how he's doing great afterwards, and he'll be
That's what's up, man.
Commentating afterwards. So, it's up until June. We'll be taking some Steeler fans. So, if you feel the need to kind of jump ship and really get over to some real players, and black and gold is where it is. I mean,
I'm telling y'all, this dude's a comedian over here, bro. I got to deal with him every day. Well, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over you, man, so you can go ahead and hit it with that ground keeping rules and that famous backpack, brother.
Sure. And we're here every week from 5 to 6:30ish. Remember that you can contact us either through text, email, or phone call, and we'll do our best to return that information or questions either through this show or the very next show. With that being said,
I think we had a little glitch in the background.
We're going to start, middle, and end every show with the backpack and plenty of surprises. We're over there in the corner. Let's talk about
upper right.
And that just simply means remember to keep your driver's license and ID with you when you're out in the car. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, it'll be easily accessible and won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm. Allow the officer to go through a spill. Keep your hands where they can be seen. And as always, make it on home to your loved ones. Same thing walking down the street. Make sure you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through a spill. And as always, make it on home to your loved ones.
Absolutely. And I just want to kind of piggyback on that just a little bit here, is that making sure that if you are out there carrying, your firearm, that you have your permit with you. Not only do you need to make sure you have your permit with you, you also need to make sure that the address on your license or your ID is the same as on your permit. Because if it not, it invalidates your permit. And I've been getting a few phone calls about that here recently, and individuals have kind of been getting jammed up on that. And it's an easy fix. Again, so don't give individuals any ammunition, I guess, if you will, to utilize against you on something that is so simple. So again, make sure that you keep your stuff tight, keep your stuff squared away, so then therefore you can continue to exert your rights as far as being able to carry.
And remember, when you went through the class, your firearms instruction class, you were informed about this information, and so it's not like they're sneaking up on you with something new. Your ID needs to match your permit in order for it to be valid. That's just very simple. So whenever you decide to move, remember that you need to update your address with the local sheriff department.
And one last thing, and this was the first time this has happened to me. I got a letter in the mail stating that my permit was being denied. And I was just like, huh? I already have my permit. What are you saying? And I was really kind of confused because it was indicating that I had not presented all of the necessary information or something like that there. But, I've had my permit for quite some time. And this was something pretty recent, So I had to kind of call down to Hennepin County, and I found out that an error was made, on one of my students when he filled out the application. He put my information in some place on the application and not his information. And I guess it wasn't even caught by, those who are processing it, and I am the one who got denied. So I had to make sure that was all cleared up, that my permit was still valid, because there was other information that was submitted that was showing who my student was, So I had to kind of, get that cleared up, and I had to call my student and say, hey, this was an error. You need to kind of get down there and clarify, rectify this. But again, when you are filling out that paperwork, please make sure that you are filling it out correctly. And if you have any questions, please make sure that you're asking the individual behind the glass window, because again, they make mistakes too, but you just don't want to delay, your process in any way. But again, with that being said, just make sure that you have all your I's dotted and T's crossed, pertaining to that stuff there. There is some information real quick that I will be kind of getting out here within the next week that just recently kind of came across my desk today, pertaining to some gun law changes. Unfortunately, it came across my desk so late that I did not necessarily have the time to really kind of dive into it and see how it's breaking down pertaining to the state of Minnesota, because this is supposed to be having some impact on all 50 states. So stay tuned for that. I'm certain that it's going to be pretty interesting. Each state will have, I'm sure, a different outcome. I'm sure there's going to be various different pushback, but nevertheless, this is why, you need to kind of get out and be involved and have some input and impact on the outcome of what that looks like for you. And that's everything from, guns to other type of public safety, or, just things that you want to see, grow in your community.
Yes.
Right. So we've had a few different situations, that has kind of happened here at home, and then also kind of across the great states. The one thing that just recently happened is that we had the FBI and some of the other federal agencies that was out serving search warrants.
Yes.
At these locations that was supposed to have been involved, within all of this fraud. It seemed like there was quite a few documents, computers, just other items that was removed, from a lot of these different locations. They seemed that it was very detailed and meticulous as far as them kind of hitting these places pretty much simultaneously.
Yeah, they were primarily the old school warrants we were used to seeing without the SWAT team, kind of like the feds going in, grabbing documents, white-collar crimeish type stuff. Not necessarily folks showing up with the SWAT team running in and kicking doors. So it was it was a warrant, but it was organized. What I mean?
Right.
It looked really nice.
Well, it was a lot better than some of the other things that we've been seeing as far as folks kind of, being traumatized, the community being traumatized. There was no huge gathering and whistles blowing and all that other type of stuff. So we will say this here, and I know that I speak for Joe as well, is that, we are pro-police, and we are anti-crime. So if you are out there, whomever, you may be, and you're committing crime, or you're committing things that, let's just say, not community friendly, then shame on you. And it's only a matter of time, before whatever it is that you're doing, will be brought to light. And so, whatever investigations, that the FBI and the other federal agencies kind of have going on, with other entities that they, did these warrants on, these search warrants.
Right.
I hope that it's, fair and it yields the outcome that needs to be. If you're guilty, then you're guilty. You need to pay for, whatever it is that you've been involved in.
Right.
We just don't need, want, or desire, that type of activity, in our communities at all.
Correct.
Brother Joe?
Yes, I mean, it's important that we pay attention to this white-collar front crime. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that white-collar crime causes a lot more damage to the environment itself in terms of how it affects those people who need the resources and they don't reach them. And so what it does is it delays the resources, because now those legitimate organizations have to prove themselves even much more that they're serving the people in which they serve. And the people who truly suffer from that are those folks who are in need of the services and can't get them until the process is cleared. So, let's make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing out there.
Absolutely. Well, I have to get your your views and opinion on the female officer. I believe she was out of I can't remember exactly what state she was in. It's going to come to Houston. Mm-hmm. I think it was Houston. And she went on a rant, as she had put herself, on video, and had a lot of nasty things to say, if you will, about African Americans.
Was she in uniform, or she just kind of?
No, she wasn't in uniform. She was not in uniform, but she did make it clear, that she was not happy with our culture, as she used the N-word multiple times and other derogatory, comments such as monkeys and things of that nature, and that when she went back to work, that she was going to basically jail every black person that she could, basically. It sounded as if that she may have been off duty and she was out someplace, and something may have happened with an item, a personal item, as if an African American person had stole, her purse or whatever that personal item was, and that really kind of perhaps set her off. Again, I'm not 100% clear, but I do know that because of her personal rant, that she was released, from employment, and that there was some indication that they was going to ensure that she would not be able to receive another law enforcement job, at least in the state of Houston, in the state of Texas. I don't know again why or what the root cause was. Obviously, typically when someone does something like that, there are multiple factors, that kind of come into play, and I hope, if you will, that this was some type of isolated incident or situation. Perhaps again something that she was just recently involved in, and she was just perhaps expressing her frustration, not excusing her behavior, because she was still in a position of authority, in a position of power to have a positive and or negative impact, on the community that she had took an oath, to protect and serve. We always say, is this going to be an arrestable moment or a teachable moment? But when you have individuals like that show up, to your doorstep, and you thinking that you're going to be left in a better position than the way that you were found, and that's not true because of one's biases, it can be quite concerning. And I'm not even for sure. I want to say that she had been on for 2 or 3 years. So I don't know exactly what that looks like as far as the arrest, that she had made previously, and if there was some type of, true imbalance as far as did she arrest more black folks, and was that more of a teachable moment versus arrestable moment, or what? But I think that there's going to be a lot of things that they're going to have to look at, pertaining to her arrest.
Yeah.
Or those that she did arrest.
I would like to simply say that that's who she is. Yeah, we do put folks through biasness training and trying to help them to understand that their biasness should be kind of, placed aside to some degree when dealing with folks in a proper fashion, and that they deal with them based on the facts. But her biasness, she couldn't hold back no more. She just had to go ahead and be who she was.
Right.
And that's exactly who she was. The blessing is that it did come out and was found out, and that she didn't get a chance, hopefully not to do as much damage to the community in which she was serving. And I'm pretty sure that there were opportunities for her to give people of color the benefit of the doubt, utilizing her discretion or authority. And I'm going to believe that in most cases she failed to give them that discretion and emphasized and utilized her biasness when making those decisions. And in essence, I think it was Maya Angelou who said, when someone reveals to you who they really are, stop trying to change them and believe them. and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to believe her. I'm convinced. And so sideline is the best place for her. And I wish her well on the outside looking in.
Right, absolutely.
And so let's hope that the folks in Texas will do a good job, so that the next time she's in an interview and is giving that speech about why she wants to make a difference in the community, that they say, hey, what's with this video? What do you got to say about that?
It kind of reminded me back when I was on the police department, and I was, still kind of young on the department. There was a young lady who had got hired by MPD, and shortly thereafter, her passing her probation, I believe it was, or she had just got hired or something like that there. But she was in videos with known, gang members, bragging about how she was able to, infiltrate, if you will, MPD. She wasn't on very long at all. But obviously she did put in some hours on the street, but it's just really interesting on how, these individuals go through all of this different background checks and the psych exam and all this other type of stuff, and they're still able to kind of, get in.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, let me tell you, because it does show that even though one has a lot of education, that it really comes down to a person's integrity and the individual person. And I think this is why we understand that you're able to hire people who are of good character, that come from the community, and they don't necessarily come from a major law enforcement background, but they're able to assimilate into law enforcement. They're able to excel very well and relate to the people in which they serve. And of course, we always offer that continued education to keep them on the laws and knowledge that you have. But I think that does prove that we have the opportunity to not necessarily not hold people so firmly to the educational requirement in the state of Minnesota. So, yeah, and we do see that. And I always tell people, like, look, we want to make it where people have an opportunity from the community to actually be guardians of their community. And so, we should look at that. We should take a look at that, because if it was all about education, we have guys in the departments with 4 and 5 year degrees, and they're still making some of those bad choices. So clearly there's some other things going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that being said, obviously, everyone knows by now, and if you don't know, now you know. I think Biggie Small says that. But with that being said, you're seeking election for Hennepin County Sheriff, and you're knowing that the numbers, for Hennepin County Sheriff, and even other great departments, that lies within Hennepin County, are short, and numbers. And again, depending on the size of the department, one can be too many and 100 is way too many, are overwhelming. So, as you're talking about, this training, the education, things of that nature, the continual education, the things that you need to do, because they've even changed the things that you need to do prior to even getting into now, where you have to do a background check and a psych test even before you kind of get into skills and stuff now.
Yeah, the MMPI too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I know that we've had conversations, about that and how that can kind of not necessarily provide all of the information, or not necessarily give you all of the tools pertaining to an individual. Does that individual even need all of that information or need all of that before getting a job? Because a lot of this stuff is, on the job training, and you also receive a lot of this stuff in your, annual continual training and things of that nature. How and what does that look like, for you, as you may sit in that seat as Hennepin County Sheriff?
I like I said, I weigh it on a case-by-case basis, but what I look at is what's in the best interest of the county itself, and the people in which we serve. Now, we already know that Minnesota sets a decently high bar for the educational requirement when it comes to being a law enforcement officer, and that's a great thing. However, we also do know that the process takes a couple years, and we're in a crisis state of crime wave, right? And so we need more persons from the community to apply for those positions. And there are some incentives that we can build in place to allow folks to get continued education and move on and get degrees. But I do think that we need to begin to open our options to the possibility of having some folks with a high school equivalency and that are at least 21 years old to be able to apply for the job. Now, there are some stats out there that support that works just fine. We have states like right next to us, like Wisconsin, that are hiring folks at age 18 with high school diplomas and have had great success, and other states like Iowa and Illinois who have different requirements. So it does show that it doesn't take away from the job. Education enhances it, of course, because you have people with a little more knowledge of how to utilize the law. But we want to be in a position where we can maximize the opportunity of the folks in the community, great integrity of taking care of their community in the fast amount of time so that we have people being protected. And I think that's something that we need to open the floor for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I wanted to take a few minutes, man, for us, to kind of talk a little bit about the situation, that happened in state of Chicago.
Okay.
Pertaining to the two officers who were, one was unfortunately killed, a 10-year vet, rest in peace, and peace and blessings to his friends and family and that department as a whole, and the city in general. But he was shot and killed, and then there was another 20-year vet that was also critically injured as he was shot in the face. And we were just recently kind of having conversations, pertaining to individuals at times kind of maybe being a little bit relaxed Again, this is no way saying that these officers were not doing their due diligence. However, in being transparent with the 60 plus years of law enforcement experience that we have, there's a lot of questions, right? And so this individual was taken into custody at point A for some type of crime. I believe it was some type of assault or theft or something like that there. And obviously he was searched at some point, hopefully, and he was then transported to the hospital because he needed or was requesting some type of medical attention. I do not believe at this point in time that the medical attention that he needed was indicative of anything that the police had to do with it, but at some point, he produced a gun, and end up shooting one and killing him and critically injuring the other. There was some indication, or the press conferences indicating that the gun was produced from underneath a blanket.
He kind of keistered it, possibly.
Well, and this is where, things kind of get a little murky. And we would definitely want to see a lot more information because the gentleman, the suspect, was in this hospital bed, nude, and the still photos that I saw is that he had one handcuff on the left wrist, and he had a gun in his right hand, and he was running down the street away from the hospital, completely nude, where he was then, retaken into custody a short term later, as he was hiding up underneath some home, or he was hiding somewhere that they were able to kind of take him back into custody, still with the weapon in his possession that he had just recently shot the two cops with. I just don't know. I don't know exactly where or how, this gun was able to be, hidden, or like you said, kind of keistered up under whatever, especially as he was nude, but he was a kind of a larger, man, to where it could have, I am not going to say easily hidden, but it could have been hidden. And I think that you had kind of stated it best, in previous conversations when it kind of comes to searching, that just because he's been searched once doesn't mean that he should not be, searched 2, 3, maybe even 4 times if you as an officer is dealing with this individual.
Yes. Thank you, Tracy and Veronica and Amanda. They've joined us too.
Thank you.
But yeah, unfortunately, these terrible, tragic events only leave us in a position to train to get better so that these mistakes don't occur again. And we do say that they are mistakes because statistically, when we go back and we look at different incidents that have occurred that led to officer tragedies, a good chunk of those are based on the fact that officers have kind of forgotten to imply or fundamentals that they've been taught and knew to be wrong. And when that happens, they've gotten burned and paid the ultimate price. And so first, let me say that our condolences go out to the family of this fallen officer and the injured officer and his agency, because I know that this is a tough time for them in trying to process all of what's going on. Secondly, it is very understandable that you need to just remember that every situation is a dangerous situation until it's completely over, right? And I think that's the most important part. Yes, somebody should have searched him, and you search him until you know for sure that he's safe for you to be able to deal with. The fact that someone else may have searched him is great for them, but what if they didn't do a good enough search? you're the person that's going to have to deal with this individual. You're the person that's going to reap whatever whirlwind they have to, bring towards your way if you do not search them. And so it's important that we go through the process. And it is a common thing that guys will utilize, I want medical assistance, in an attempt to get officers to let their guards down. And it is usually when things do traumatically go wrong in those situations, because doctors have a different set of protocol than peace officers do. And so when they're going, hey, we've got them, you still have to say, hey, doc, let me make sure it's safe for you to be able to deal with them, because we teach this to cops all the time, scene safety, right? And to make sure it's even safe for you to be there. And it's tragic that those officers were wounded and killed like they were. But just think, he could have gone on a rampage and shot doctors and patients and everything else. So it was held to a minimum, but it is important that we take away that training possibility from this situation.
Absolutely. Well, in my understanding, there was a medical staff that also perhaps received some injuries. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what that medical staff's injury were. Was it with that gun or, just being shoved out the way? But in their press conference, there was a medical staff that was also named within this incident of receiving some type of injuries or something like that. I do want to take my hat off to the chief of police over there in Chicago. This gentleman seems to have his stuff together. Mm-hmm. He seems to have his I's dotted and T's crossed, if you will. I know that he is in charge of a city that has a lot going on, within that city. But he seems to have risen, to the top in being able to acknowledge and address things that has occurred in his own backyard, mm-hmm. And abroad, to basically educate, those as far as his officers, mm-hmm. and those that may kind of come to his city, and perhaps, engage in unwanted activity, within the city of Chicago. So I say that to say, hats off to the chief of police down there. He seems to be doing a fabulous job. Mm-hmm. As we kind of, swing back around to back here at home, mm-hmm. We just recently had a situation, I believe, pertaining to Richfield PD.
Correct.
And them having an officer involved shooting.
Yes.
What do you know pertaining to that?
Well, it's still an ongoing investigation, but it sounds like Richfield responded to a prowler call roughly about 3 o'clock-ish in the morning. When they arrived, they encountered an individual that appeared to be suspect at best. The individual kind of fled from officers. One of the officers gave pursuit, mm-hmm. and it sounds like the individual then opened fire on the officer, striking him in the hand, and one of the officers returned fire, and the individual was pronounced deceased at the scene. So it's yet again important why we handle violent crime and deal with individuals. Now the story, I'm sure we haven't had a chance to look more into this individual's background, and I'm sure in the coming days that will come to light. But thankfully, the officer is going to be okay. It sounds like he took the necessary steps that he did to protect himself and the community. Gratefully, he was there in time enough to prevent this individual from doing whatever he intended on doing, because the fact that he opened fire on a law enforcement uniformed officer shows that he intended to harm somebody, mm-hmm. For sure. And in essence, this officer put himself in harm's way to protect the community and did a great job. So hats off to the Richfield Police Department and that officer for, getting things done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do want to kind of tell a short, quick story, if I may. I was at work 2 days ago, and we received a phone call that there was a African American gentleman, heavy set in description, with some spikes, perhaps, was it white spike strips or whatever in the top of his head or whatever, and that he was on school property, and that he was in the wooded line,
Okay.
and that he was completely nude, and that he was watching kids, taking photos of kids, and doing other lewd acts while doing so. And so by the time we got this information, security staff had responded. St. Louis Park PD, had also responded. But there was a few kids, young girls, that had saw this gentleman. He was also witnessed by at least one adult. And so this is still, ongoing investigation. But he was gone, if you will, by the time that we were able to respond. But very alarming, and concerning, that we have these type of individuals, whether it's the situation with Chicago PD at the hospital, whether it's the situation in Ridgefield, or this type of situation in St. Louis Park. We still are out here dealing with, situations and scenarios and individuals that can cause a great deal of harm, and or death, in our communities. And this is why we need to make sure that we band together. This is no longer a community issue or the community against the police or whatever the case may be. We'll be the first to admit, that there are some law enforcement officers throughout the country, unfortunately, that choose to kind of do what it is that they want to do, which is not very positive or productive for the community. But we also know that we have some community members that, they don't necessarily abide by community rules either.
Right.
Right. And so then therefore, if you see something, say something, get involved, things of that nature. I think the big man that came back in, he done got us back up. Look at that. Look, hey, that's who we are. But we are part of the family of all those other entities that are up there. They're all part of CCX Create, right? So again, come on down, be a part of Let's Talk About It. Come on down, talk to CCX Create to perhaps develop your own show, right? But just know that things like this here, our board back here, it may happen. You may sometimes happen to get no sound, but we just deal with it, right? It's all about being part of the community. Brother Joe, before we get out of here, I want you to be able to share with the people, number one, in brief, how's the campaign going? And two, why should individuals vote for Joe?
The campaign is going great. We are having some great communications with the community. There are a lot of people with some legitimate concerns that we've been able to have some conversations with about some things they would like to see changed. And I would simply say that one of the major reasons why you need to vote for me is because I am going to make sure that I get you in a situation where you're safe with you and your families. We all know that crime has gotten to the point where we can't even go outside with our families and enjoy ourselves either downtown or near the lakes. And I think we need to be in a situation where we can be safe again. And so I'm going to do it every day by getting out there, making sure that we are safe, not just, sitting somewhere, but actually in the squad car with my deputies, with those officers, so that I can see it firsthand. And if you want somebody who's going to be able to be approachable, reachable, day and night to solve crime in your community, I'm your guy. And so that's why you need to vote for me, because I'm your voice, and I'm going to be right there with you.
Yes. Well, really quick, one last question that I was told to ask you is that we have a lot of nonprofit entities, and we kind of spoke about this quite a bit, but we have a lot of nonprofit entities out there that's boots on the ground, doing a lot of outreach, things of that nature. But a lot of people seem to be extremely frustrated, irritated, whatever the case may be, because there seems to be so many of them. And they don't seem to be kind of working together. A lot of them don't know the community members, don't know exactly, what the outcome is with these nonprofit entities that are out here with services, resources, et cetera, et cetera. And they believe that this money that is being allocated to a lot of these nonprofits can be better spent by having a lot more police officers or law enforcement, in their community.
Well, I'm going to say that it's a little bit of both. Because we do want more deputies and police officers on the street because we want to deter crime and we want to prevent crime. And as you know, the prevention is better than the cure. But I also want to have those community-based grassroots organizations be a part of the solution. And I think that what we can do is offer them a platform to come together and work together to solve some of the things that they're working on separately, together, right? I think we're all working toward the same thing, which is a safe county, but we're all kind of doing it in our own space and direction. And so if we can combine some of those things, we're going to get it done a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are down to the end of another fabulous show. Let's talk about it. We hope that we've been able to bring you news that you can use. But before we get out of here, I definitely want to thank our listening and viewing audience for chiming in, supporting us, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is a platform for you to get involved, to educate, empower, and enhance you as individuals and also community. Come on down, be part of the show, talk about what you are, providing, to the community. Again, CCX Create is always looking for new, innovative shows. They are always, looking to accept, those donations, no matter how small or large. But check them out, CCX Create. Brother Joe, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to you so you can go ahead and close it out because we got the big man over there looking at us like he about to turn out the lights. He ready to go home.
Yes, guys, we thank you for joining us every week. We'll see you again next week. There's a lot of community-based organizations out there. Again, if you see something, say something. Take care of your neighbors. With that being said, we start, middle, and end every show with the backpack.
That famous backpack.
And that backpack consists of making sure you have your driver's license and insurances before you get in that vehicle. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, it won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. And as always, always make it on home to your loved ones. Same thing when walking down the street. Make sure you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. And as always, make it on home to your loved ones. It's been another great show. We really enjoyed you. We'll see you again next week.
Yeah,
My name's Joe Beeks.
And I'm Anthijuan Beeks.
And we just talked about it.
Peace.